When it comes to a wedding, obviously the most important aspect of the day is the beginning of the marriage of the new young couple. The new young couple wants to celebrate, and they want to celebrate with new friends, old friends, and most importantly, with their family. When a young couple decides to have a religious Jewish wedding, and that's not what their family and friends are used to, it's important to the couple that their family and friends feel comfortable so that they can not only join in the celebration, but they can be a main part in the inner circle of the celebration. So it's very important to a young couple that their family and friends know what to expect. So we're going to talk a little bit about what to expect at a religious Jewish wedding. To understand a religious Jewish wedding, we have to understand that traditionally, Jewish weddings consist of two parts. The first one is called Erusin or Kedushin, and the second one is called Nisuin. These processes are alluded to in the written Torah. They're written about in the Talmud 1,500 years ago. And the two parts go like this. It's very simple. Erusin is a process where a man gives an item of value to a woman with the purpose of marrying her in front of two witnesses. Nisuin, we'll talk about, there's a discussion about exactly what it is, but today we do it by standing under a chuppah and reciting 7 blessings. That's all that's required for two people to get married. Now, in olden times, they would do Erusin or Kedushin a whole year before Nisuin. And so Erusin in modern Hebrew has actually come to mean engagement. But Erusin was much more than an engagement. After Erusin, the couple is actually married. It's just that until after they've done Nisuin, they can't start their life together as husband and wife. They can't live together. So we're going to talk about what leads up to this process, and then what to expect when you see this process happen, and then how we celebrate after it's happened. The process really begins a week before the wedding. After the couple has been engaged, they've made all the preparations, at least the main preparations for the wedding. A week before the wedding, our bride and groom get together and they say goodbye to each other. Because for a week before the wedding, the Jewish tradition is the bride and the groom don't see each other. The main reason for that is to build up anticipation so that that moment when they see each other on their wedding day will be a very, very special moment with a build-up of a whole week leading up to it. Now I mentioned the bride and the groom. The Hebrew words for bride and groom, a bride is called a kala, and a groom is called a chatan or a chasen. You hear those words a lot, the chasen and the kala. Chasen is the groom, kala is the bride. So after this week of not seeing each other, and during this week, one of the things that happens is on the Shabbos before the wedding. In Ashkenazi Jewish communities, a chasen has something called an ufruf. An ufruf is a celebration on Shabbos in which the groom is called up to the Torah to read for an aliyah, to make the blessings on the Torah in anticipation of his big day coming up. And usually the families come. And afterwards, sometimes they have some kind of celebration to celebrate the preliminary stage of the getting married. Now, interestingly, while the family and friends may come to the ufruf, one significant member of the wedding party isn't at the ufruf. The kala, the bride, because she doesn't see her groom for the week before. So where's she? She on that Shabbos often has a separate celebration called a Shabbos Kala, where she sometimes will be, either somebody will host it or it'll be in her house, and friends and family throughout the day will come and wish her well and celebrate her with her as she gets ready for the big celebration. After that Shabbos, we're ready to head towards the big day, the wedding itself. Now, on the day of a person's wedding, both the bride and the groom are considered a king and a queen. And part of that process of being a king and queen is that they're getting to start their life anew. So, the day of a wedding is a day where they get to start over with full atonement from anything that happened in their life, anything they would have done in the past, as long as it's accompanied by a desire to repent and to make a new beginning. So that day is very similar to a day on the Jewish calendar many people are familiar with, Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement, and on that day, we wear white, we fast, and we focus on our spiritual growth and who we want to be. So on the day of the wedding, many have the custom that the bride and the groom will both fast on that day. They won't eat. And in fact, in the days leading up to the wedding, they'll often think about people that they might have wronged, friends, family members, and come up to them and ask for forgiveness. On that day, they actually, when they pray the afternoon service, mincha, they actually pray the same service that we pray on Yom Kippur. Only them, not everybody else. Because for them, it's a special day of atonement and starting this new chapter in their life. Now, when you arrive at the wedding, the guests arrive, where will everybody be? So the men will be in one room, the women will be in another. The men will be at something that's called the chassan's tish. Again, chassan means groom. Tish is the Yiddish word for table. And at the chassan's tish will be the groom, usually sitting with his father and his father-in-law-to-be, or other family members, and rabbis. And as male guests arrive, they will come into the chassan's tish, and join the chassan. There'll be food and drink out on the table for everybody to enjoy, except perhaps our chassan, who might be fasting. Again, by the way, it's only a tradition to fast, and therefore, if anybody is not feeling well for any reason, the chassan or the kala, for any reason, we very, very quickly tell them to break their fast. But if they're a good faster and things are going okay, so then they fast, and they sit at the chassan will sit at the chassan's dish, watching everybody else eat and drink, and they'll sing, and there will be, maybe some people will share some words of Torah. If the chassan, the groom, gets up to share some words of Torah, he might feel compelled to do that. We know he doesn't have a lot of time to prepare, so as he starts to speak, people will often start singing to drown out the sound of his voice, so that he won't feel any pressure to produce a very high quality discourse on the day of his wedding. So after he sits back down, several things have to happen at the chassan's dish. Number one is the signing of the ketubah. A ketubah, sometimes called a ksuva, is a wedding contract. Now it says in the ketubah that the chatan, the chassan, the groom, promises that he will take care of his kala, his bride, his wife, forever. It says that he commits himself to her physical needs, her spiritual needs, her financial needs, and her emotional needs. It even says in there the words in Aramaic that he promises to even give her the shirt off of his back, which is where that expression comes from. He promises also that if, God forbid, this wedding would ever end, either in the death of one of them or in, God forbid, a divorce, he promises that he will continue to support her even after, God forbid, such a thing would happen, but we're sure that that's not going to happen as we stand at the chassan's dish. Now, the wedding contract has to be signed, but not by the groom and not by the bride, by two witnesses. So at the tish, two witnesses will be called, and those witnesses will sign on the bottom of the ketubah. We're going to find throughout the whole process, witnesses play a very big part. Witnesses in Judaism are religious men who are not related to either the groom or the bride. So the witnesses will sign the ketubah, and then that gets put aside to be used again at the wedding ceremony. Next, often, the tradition is that the two mothers, the mother of the groom and the mother of the bride, will come into the chassan's tish where the men are. They'll take a plate, and they will break the plate over a chair. Right? Kind of strange tradition. So one of the explanations of that tradition is even stranger. Right? It's kind of an inverse metaphor. We're saying just as these two families, which are being joined now, no matter how hard you would try, they'll never be able to be separated because they're going to be so intrinsically connected. So too, this plate is so intrinsically one piece that if it's broken in half, it'll never ever be able to be put together exactly the same way again. Also, as we're going to see other things are, it's a remembrance of the fact that as happy as we are on this very, very special day, we still don't have our Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and there's still an element of sadness, and so we mark that by breaking something. After that has been done, there is a process called Tana'im, which is often done at the Tish as well. This is sometimes done at an engagement party. The Tana'im is another contract. Again, it's kind of outdated. It's a contract where the two families commit to their financial support of the couple, both in terms of paying for the wedding, which most of which has probably been paid for already, and their startup costs as the couple gets started, whatever they are committing themselves to pay. Again, once that has been done, it's very complicated if the couple actually doesn't get married. So instead of doing it at an engagement party, today we often do that right before the wedding at this chassan stish. Now, over on the other side, the kala, the bride, will be sitting in a big chair, and as the women come in, they will come and greet her. That is called the Kabbalat Panim, or the Kabbalas Panim, which means literally the greeting of faces. And she sits, and people come, and people will wish her well, and they will also come and ask her to give them a bracha, give them a blessing, because again, on this special day, she's a queen. She's on a very, very high spiritual level. And therefore people will ask her, could you say, please give me a blessing that I should also get married, or that this sick person I know should get healthy, or that this person I know who's struggling should be able to do well. And it's a very, very happy time. Then, after everything has been done at the chassan stish, and the women are standing at the Kabbalas Panim, the women are standing at the Kabbalas Panim will all of a sudden begin to hear singing. The reason they're hearing singing is because over at the Kabbalat Panim, over at the chassan stish, the men have raised the volume of their singing. They've stood up, they've probably done some dancing, and now they all put their arms around each other and they surround the groom, standing with some of his special people in his life, his father-in-law, his rabbis, whoever it is. They will stand on either side of him, and everybody else there will surround him in a mob of singing, dancing people. And this big crowd of people will start moving out of the room where the chassan stish is, towards the room where the Kabbalat Panim is. And as they approach the women, they will head straight towards the chair where the kala is sitting, where the bride is. And then this sea of men who are dancing, some of them facing the groom, therefore their backs are to the kala, to the bride, will split. And there will be a direct line where the chassan and the kala see each other for the first time on their wedding day, and for the first time in a whole week. It's a moment of great anticipation, and often great emotion. And then our groom, our chassan, will go up to his kala, and they'll exchange a few words. And then people will come, close family members will come and want to give them blessings. And the rabbi who is officiating the service will give them blessings. And then we do something called the bedeken. Bedeken literally is related to the word checking. What happens is the groom takes the veil, which the kala will wear on her face, and takes it off of the top of her head and puts it over her face. Now, the sources for this are for different reasons. Some say this is related to what we find in the Torah, that when Isaac, Yitzchak, met his wife, Rivka, right before they got married, the Torah tells us that Rivka put a veil over her face. Also, we know that Yaakov, Jacob, tried to marry his wife Rachel, but actually married the wrong woman, married Leah. Eventually he ended up marrying Rachel as well. But to make sure that this woman who's about to put this veil on his face is really his wife, the groom himself is the one who puts the veil on her face. Having done that, the men then dance the chatan, the groom, away, and he will be danced to the chuppah, where he will wait under the chuppah for his kala to join him. Now, again, a chuppah is a canopy on 4 poles. Sometimes those 4 poles are held by people, and sometimes they're connected to the ground. Now, as everybody comes to the chuppah to prepare to watch the wedding ceremony, it's important to know a very important difference between weddings in Israel and weddings outside of Israel in places like America and England. In America, weddings are done with great decorum, right? Everybody comes, they sit down in seats that are prepared for them, and everybody waits quietly and patiently. In Israel, sometimes weddings happen that way, and other times there are no seats. Everybody crowds around, as it was in Europe. Everybody crowds around the wedding canopy and watches from a much, much more intimate, close perspective, right? But maybe without some of the decorum that you have in a nice auditorium where everybody's sitting down. So whichever it is, we'll be prepared for. We come to the chuppah, and then the bride, the kala, will walk down the aisle to where her chassan is waiting for her, under the chuppah. There are 2 different traditions. One is that the kala will be walked down the aisle by her parents, her father on one side, her mother on the other. The other tradition is that she'll be walked down by her mother and her future mother-in-law, and her father-in-law, her future father-in-law, will and her father will wait for her under the chuppah where the chassan is waiting. Now, there's also a tradition that whoever is involved in the procession, often, except for the chassan and kala, often holds candles. And candles are very symbolic in Jewish tradition of lots of things. It's not a requirement, but it's often done. Now, once the kala arrives at the chuppah, where her husband is waiting, where her husband-to-be is waiting for her, in Ashkenazi tradition, she then begins walking around him 7 times. And she will actually walk counterclockwise in a circle around where the chassan is 7 times. Her mother and or mother-in-law will walk behind her, usually carrying the train of her dress, making sure that it doesn't get tangled up as she walks around in a circle. And you'll often notice, if you're watching the chassan and kala at this point, that their lips are moving. This is a very auspicious time for prayer, not just for the chassan and kala, for everybody present. Anything a person would want to pray for, right? Hashem always listens to our prayers, but this is a very auspicious time. We understand on many mystical and spiritual levels, many, many very holy things are happening as she walks around him. Now, once she stops, she and her chassan are now standing next to each other under the chuppah, and we are ready for the ceremony to begin. Now, as the ceremony begins, it's important to know that there will be a rabbi officiating the ceremony. However, the role of the rabbi is not to make the couple married. In fact, you don't need a rabbi in order to get married in Judaism. There is no such thing as the power vested in me making somebody husband and wife. In fact, people often talk about the rabbi who married me. The only people who can correctly say the rabbi who married me is the rabbi's wife. Everybody else wasn't married by the rabbi. The husband and wife do that all by themselves. The rabbi who's officiating is called the Mesader Kedushin. Mesader means the one arranging the Kedushin, the ceremony. His job is just to make sure that things go smoothly. So as the couple stands under the chuppah, they now need to begin these 2 processes, Erusin or Kedushin, and the Nisuin. Again, as we said before, Erusin or Kedushin is the process of a man giving something of value to a woman for the purpose of marrying her in front of 2 witnesses. So 2 witnesses will be called up. Again, they will be men who are religious Jews, who are not related either by blood, either to the groom or the bride. They will be called up, and the groom will have a ring with him. Now, it's important that the ring belong to him. In fact, some people, if they paid for the ring with a check, will make sure that the check cashed ahead of time, or the credit card, they'll make sure that their credit card bill is paid. That's maybe an extra stringency, but that's how far we want to go to make sure this ring belongs to the chassan, because he needs to give something of value to his wife-to-be. The ring will be examined by the witnesses, because this thing must be worth at least what's called in the times of the Talmud a pruta. Now, a pruta is about 17 agorot, or about less than 25 cents. So chances are this ring is probably worth more than a pruta, but nevertheless, the custom is that the witness is inspected, and then the rabbi who's leading the ceremony will take a cup of wine and make 2 blessings, one blessing on the wine, and one blessing on what is about to happen, the Kedushin. The bride and the groom will then each take a sip of the wine. Remember, it's only going to be a sip because they've been fasting all day. And then the groom will take the ring and he will give it to his wife. And the way he does that is he says the formula, Hare at mikudeshes li, b'ta'abat zu kadas Moshe v'Yisrael. That's Aramaic for, behold, you are married to me with this ring according to the laws of Moshe and the Jewish people. He'll take the ring, he puts it on her index finger. It's not clear why it's the index finger. Some say that the index finger, there's a direct connection between the left index finger and the heart. He'll put it on the index finger, and she will close her finger over the ring to indicate that she is happy about acquiring this ring. That process of man giving the ring and the wife showing she wants to accept it in front of these 2 witnesses makes them married. And at that point, the rabbi will turn to the witnesses to confirm that they saw what happened, and they will say, Mikudeshes. which means married. This couple is now not just chassan and kala, they are husband and wife. However, as we said before, they can't start living together yet. They need to do the second process called nisuin. So before we go to nisuin, we differentiate that we have now finished erusin by breaking up the ceremony with the giving of the ketubah. That ketubah that was signed before, now the chassan takes it and hands it to the kala, again in the presence of these witnesses, and now he has obligated himself to everything that's promised in his contract, and he has given it to his wife. A couple cannot live together even for one night if they don't have a marriage contract. So now she has been given the marriage contract, he has obligated himself to everything that a husband is obligated to his wife. She will usually give it to her mother or somebody for safekeeping. They will make sure that it's going to make its way to wherever the couple is sleeping that night, because they can't be a husband and wife without that in the room. So then after it's handed over, or before it's handed over, somebody would be called up and will read the ketubah. It's considered a great honor to be asked to read the ketubah. It's written in Aramaic, so somebody who knows how to read Aramaic is going to be the one called up to read it. Now, having done erusin or kiddushin, having given the ketubah, now we are up to nisuin. Nisuin is, again, as we said before, standing under the wedding canopy, the chuppah, and having 7 brachas be said. The bride and the groom ahead of time will pick people they would like to honor with the honor of coming up and making these 7 blessings. So first, usually somebody will be called up, take a cup of wine again, make the first 2 blessings, the first of which is Borei Pri Hagafen on the wine, and then a second blessing. And then they will call up a person for the 3rd blessing, and the 4th blessing, and the 5th blessing, and the 6th blessing. The 7th blessing is a little bit longer and involves a lot of singing. So in the middle of the 7th blessing, usually the one making the blessing will stop, and everybody will sing part of it together, and then the person making the 7th blessing will finish, right? And then bride and groom will drink from the cup. Now, at this point, the couple is married. They've done erusin and kiddushin. There has been a transfer of a ketubah, of a wedding contract, and now there has been a nisuin. Now, there's one more part of the ceremony, which is, again, as we said before, since the temple in Jerusalem has not been rebuilt, and we are still waiting to be saved from the exile that we're in, we want to acknowledge that even though as happy as we are, our happiness is not complete. And therefore, the groom will break a glass. Now, this is sometimes done in between the erusin and nisuin, and it's sometimes done at this point after the nisuin has already been done. The groom will lift up his right foot, and he'll step on a glass. Don't worry, it's usually a special kind of glass, not a very thick, hard glass, which is easy to break, and it's wrapped in lots of paper or something else so that he won't get injured. And he steps on it, breaks it. Now, ironically, everybody yells out as soon as he breaks it, everybody yells out Mazel Tov. That's ironic because he's breaking it to remind us of our sadness about the Holy Temple. But nevertheless, the tradition is everybody yells out Mazel Tov. And then we are ready to move from the ceremony to the celebration. Now, the chassan and kala, the husband and wife, will now hold hands. And remember, religious couples don't touch each other until they're married. So this will be the first time they take hands as husband and wife. And they will be danced out of the ceremony by their friends and family, right, singing traditional Jewish songs and clapping. Hugs will be exchanged, women to the women and men to the men. And they will be marched away with great festivity from the chuppah. And where are they going? So from the ceremony, they are marched or danced to a room that's called the yichud room. Yichud literally means togetherness or separation from other people, meaning it means being together in seclusion. And so the yichud room is a room where the chassan and kala, the husband and wife, go into this room by themselves and spend a period of time in there. And why are they doing this? What are they doing in there? So, what they're probably doing in there is eating. They've been fasting all day, their fast is now over, and the caterer will make sure that there's some food in there for the two of them to sit and be able to enjoy a few bites together. Also, there's a beautiful tradition that often the chassan and kala, the husband and wife, exchange gifts during these first private moments in the yichud room. Now, the yichud room also signifies that until a couple is married, just like men and women don't touch in religious Jewish societies, also they don't seclude themselves in rooms. It is forbidden according to Jewish law for a single man and a single woman, or even for a married man and a married woman who's not his wife, to be in a room alone. So this signifies they are married. It is now permitted for them to be alone, secluded in a room. Again, there will be witnesses standing outside, making sure that nobody goes in or out, because we want to know that this couple actually had time alone. This is actually a requirement. According to some, this is a finishing of the ceremony, and the ceremony may not be over until they've done this. They need to be there in there for a period of time. There are different opinions about how long, usually about 7 or 8 minutes. They're usually given a little longer than that if they want to spend a little extra time in there, right? And then it's time for them to come out. Now, where will everybody else be while they're in the Yichud room? So they've been everybody danced them to the room, and then they'll stay for a minute and sing outside the room, and then they'll respect the couple's privacy, and they will go into the ceremony, into the reception hall, where the first course will be served. Everybody will sit to the first course, and then it might be a while before you see the Chassan and Kala again. Now why? They're only in the Yichud room for 7 or 8 minutes. So in Jewish weddings, since the tradition is the bride and the groom don't see each other for the week before the wedding until the ceremony, they haven't had a chance to take pictures yet. So after they come out of the Yichud room, this is not a Jewish law, but just a practical problem. We want pictures from the wedding, and we haven't been able to do it yet. So right then, the family will get together, and that's often when most of the pictures are taken. Right? So everybody else will be waiting, could be for even up to an hour, eating their salad, right, at their own pace, while the pictures are being taken. Now, after that, there will all of a sudden be a hustle and bustle. People will realize something's about to happen. The band will be tipped off, that it is now time. The Chassan and Kala are going to join us in the reception hall. Now, one of my favorite distinctions between a religious Jewish wedding and other traditions, other secular weddings and other things, is that at a Jewish wedding, just like every other wedding, there's dancing. However, the dancing and the celebrating is always focused on the bride and the groom. If the bride and the groom aren't in the room, there's no dancing. If the bride and the groom are in the room, there's dancing. But the dancing is surrounding them. It's not just a song comes on and whoever wants to dance, dances. We are dancing with the bride and the groom. So from the moment the bride and groom walk in, usually to a very excited music, right? The groom will be grabbed by his friends and family, his male friends and family. The bride, the Kala, will be grabbed by her female friends and family. They will go to separate sides of the dance floor, and they will begin dancing. Right? Often on the men's side, the chassan will be taken on somebody's shoulders. Right? Immediately, the close family members will be rushed to the inside so that they can have the first dance with the groom, and on the women's side as well, with the first dance with the bride. Everybody else will form circles around, and there will be raucous dancing on both sides of the men's side and the women's side. There will be what's called a mechitza down the middle, separating the two, and the women will dance with the Kala, and the men will dance with the Chassan, and that can go on for up to half an hour. Now, during that time, there's another tradition, which it's very important that the family and friends know about ahead of time. One of the things, we're dealing with the king and the queen, the husband and wife. This is their day. They are the king and the queen. We are there to serve them. So just like in a king's court, the jester comes and performs for the king and the queen, so too at a wedding. We are all there to try to make the king and the queen happy. And therefore, at some point, people will bring chairs, the chassan will sit, right? Sometimes this is done separately, the chassan on his side and the Kala on her side, and then at some point, usually the Kala comes over to the chassan side and they're together. And when they're separate, the women will dance in front of the Kala while she sits, and her mother and her grandmother and whoever else will sit next to her, and everybody will dance for them. And the same thing's going on the men's side. The men are dancing and they're doing wild things. They're juggling fire and they're doing handstands and they're doing little skits and they're doing all kinds of things as the music's blaring. And it's lots and lots of fun. And they want everybody to be involved. Anything goes. You can go out there and do any kind of dance you want, anything that's going to make the bride and the groom happy. Again, eventually the bride usually comes over to the men's side as well, and the men will dance. The women usually don't dance in front of the groom, but the men will dance for the couple. The women kind of trickle over to watch. Yeah? And then the dancing continues and continues. Finally, when it's time for that round of dancing to end, often the bride and the groom are carried to their head table, the dais, where they will begin their meal. Now, throughout the festive meal, which is a mitzvah, there will be several bouts of dancing, and at the end of the meal, as we always do after we eat bread, we'll say the grace after meals. It's a special grace after meals, though. And during that special grace after meals, the same 7 blessings which made this couple married in the Nisuin will be repeated again as part of the grace after meals at the end of the meal. And in fact, every day for the 7 days after the wedding, and the wedding being the first day, the 6 days after that, every day, anytime they have a meal with 10 people, provided there's at least one new person who hasn't celebrated with them yet, they will do it again. And that grace after meals, everybody around will say those 7 blessings so that we can continue the celebration even after the week. Now, one last word about this celebrating with the bride and the groom. Celebrating with the bride and the groom is not only a way to make our bride and groom happy, it is a mitzvah into itself. It is something we understand we get great reward just for having a great time at the wedding and celebrating with the bride and the groom. Why is that? So one understanding is because it's so important for the bride and the groom to start off their marriage this way. They want all the people in their lives to celebrate with them, to send them off into the beginning of their marriage, starting with great excitement and happiness. There's also a deeper understanding. A great rabbi in the last generation, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, said that when we go to a wedding, I'm not just there to make the bride and the groom happy. When there is another Jewish home in the Jewish people, that's not just a happiness for them. That's a happiness for me. I'm a member of the Jewish people. And when I see another Jewish home being formed, I want to celebrate. Throughout the generations, people have wanted to kill the Jews, wanted to end Judaism. And here's another strong Jewish family about to begin, full of Torah learning and Jewish observance. What could I be possibly more excited about? So I'm not just celebrating for them. I'm celebrating for me. This is my simcha. I'm happy to be here. Not just because I want to make them happy. I also want to make them happy. But I'm happy to be here. For that reason, at a Jewish wedding, when you meet somebody at the wedding, they will often come up to you and they will say, Mazel Tov. Now, if you are the groom, or you're the groom's mother, or you're the bride, or you're the bride's sister, that makes sense. You understand why they're saying Mazel Tov to you. But what if you're just a guest at the wedding? You're a friend, or you're a distant relative, right? Why are they coming up to you and saying Mazel Tov? So now we understand. They're saying Mazel Tov to you because whoever you are, if you are celebrating at this wedding, it's your celebration. It's not just about them. So it's a great celebration, and everybody is there to have a good time. Everybody is there to focus on the bride and the groom and this new home that's being formed. And we send them off that they should start their wedding with the same kind of energy, their marriage with the same kind of energy that they had at the wedding.